Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Functional Spirituality Podcast. We've got a special episode today in collaboration with Anaid, who's in Mexico. And we've also got, it's a video podcast as well. So you might be watching it on YouTube or just listening on Spotify or your Apple podcast. And today, Anaid and I are going to be chatting about making the decision to become a parent. For some people, it's super obvious, yes or no. And for other people, as they enter into their reproductive years, it can become confusing and feel like a really big decision to make with lots of different ideas going through the head. So Anaid is one of those people, and she's going to share her story a little bit in a moment. And we've got a bunch of questions as well. So we put up a poll or a question box on our social media. And I woke up today and Anaid was like, I've added all the questions to the list, and we've got a massive list. Tried to consolidate some of them, but yeah, they're all really good. They're things that I've heard come up. You know, it's the questions that come up for people. If you don't fall into this category of someone who's, facing this decision, I still think it'll be a really interesting topic. And we're going to talk about all things to do with relationship dynamics, self-care, and, taking on a really important life project, which is how I kind of think about what kids are. So I'll hand it over to our interviewer, Anaid.
Hello, everyone, and hi, Ava. It's good to be back. um, so I'll explain a little bit about how this topic started. I think it was at the beginning of this year. I was having a coffee with Sharon, who's a girl who I met at the Functional Flow yoga teacher training back in 2020, I think, and no, 2021. And so yeah, we're both just basically in our 30s. We're both entrepreneurs, very invested in our passions. We like our freedom. And yeah, she was asking me, oh, would Alva be interested in doing a workshop or something about parenting? So she can help us answer lots of questions. And so I remember telling you this a few months ago, and yeah, I think we both talked about the opportunity of starting with a podcast episode and compiling some questions that we've had. Like for me, for example, it hasn't been a full yes, a full clear yes. Up until my 30s, for me it was actually the motherhood and parenting topic was a full no. So yeah, over the last few years I've just been questioning more about why am I saying no to motherhood. Is this how I am really feeling, or is this coming out of some fears or trauma? What is it that I do really want in my life? What are my intentions? And yeah, like I admire the way you see things, Ava, and you're also a fantastic leader and teacher. And I think we all many of our listeners resonate with the fact that we do appreciate your points of view in life in general. So yeah, I'm very happy that we're opening this space for conversation, because I feel like maybe I think it's been like a stigma, for people who are a bit unsure about parenthood or don't want to have kids as well, women and men, or who are actually questioning whether they do want to have kids or not, or bring kids into this world. So sometimes there's no such an open conversation about this. So I'm very glad that we're here doing this.
Yep. Yeah, me too.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Yay. So we're gonna start with the questions because we've got a long list. So yeah, first things first, from your personal experience, did you decide to have kids? How was it for you? How was your experience?
Yep. Because Jasmine happened, right? So she was a surprise.
Yeah.
Um, and I did decide to have kids. Like, I really resonate with your story, and I feel like many of the people who offered questions probably have a similar story where it was a no, but then as the time gets a little bit more serious,
Mhm.
biological clocks for women come into play,
Yeah.
then you want to make sure, where's this no coming from? So I love the way that you put that. So yeah, I resonate with that. I've always been a hard no. I'm not interested. I don't like kids. It's not something I'm
Yeah.
interested in. Like, so I don't like kids in general. Like, I don't never really related to them. Never saw myself as wanting to take on that project. And just as I'm saying it, it's like I created the story around that personally. Um,
Mhm.
it just, the whole thing didn't resonate for me. And so, I kind of created a story around the whole thing. So I'm not saying that the whole thing wasn't true. It was definitely true, but I created all of the whole story around it, that about not liking kids and stuff. Like, yeah, kids, when I met a few kids, like, they were all right. I actually liked some kids and we had fun. But I remember when I was, in my teenage years, I had this idea about never wanting to have kids, because of the way that it would
Yeah.
change my body. So it was a more superficial appearance, attractiveness kind of thing. Like, looking
Mhm.
at my mom as not being like the image of youthful attractiveness, and saying, that's because of babies, or someone must have said that to me or something, like, well, I look like this because I've had kids. So I had that idea that got locked in. I really think that was I was just kind of reflecting before we started. I really think that was one of the kind of like fundamental seeds that started the tree of I don't want to have kids. When I was 19, I got a really big tattoo that covers one entire bum of mine, like one entire side
Oh
of my
yeah, I've
my
seen
huge
that
tattoo.
one.
And it was a promise to myself that I would never have kids, because if I did, it would stretch the tattoo out. Was
Wow.
this idea
Yeah.
that I had, which, like, later on, I obviously learned more about anatomy, and like, I've had a kid and it hasn't stretched my tattoo out at all. Like,
Of course.
anyways, but yes, something changed. Funnily enough, it's when I entered my 30s, which is when everyone says, like, it'll change, and wait till you enter your 30s and things will change. But actually, something changed inside me where I became more open to the idea. And it was after a whole lot of changes in the key areas that I think are important for being a successful parent. So I started to get my own resources. The business started to stand on its own 2 feet, started to get a financial base for myself. I had, just, it all kind of coalesced at the same period. I came out of a period of really intense, like, my lifelong complex trauma, and increasing my capacity, feeling really confident in my capacity to relate to people and hold space. Um, and I started to feel like I'd be interested in parenthood. And at some point, it evolved into, this is something that I'd like to do. I'm not even sure if Jared is the person that I'd like to do it with, because our relationship
Mm.
wasn't necessarily in like the strongest place. But I felt like I started to feel like it was a part of my bigger work that, like, because I don't think parenting is like my biggest work, my biggest passion. It's not still. But it's
Mm.
part of my bigger work of service in being able to really understand and relate to the people I serve, because I'm in like this kind of service-based um work, and also a greater service to how I could contribute and provide impact to the world. But yeah, also just to develop my own depth and understanding and philosophy. And I felt like I had the capacity to do that. And I think before that, I had weird ideas and no capacity. And it just made sense to not want to do
Mm.
that. That's my personal experience. So yeah, I did decide. Jasmine was still a surprise. I did not decide that year that that would be a good year. But it was like, if anyone is ever saying that, like, I'm in the middle of this, like, how am I supposed to do it? A path is made, a path is parted. Just like if someone was to say, hey, look, I need this project, it's urgent, let's do this. You then put your focus on that and you make that happen, and other things become less of a priority. But you still make it work.
Yeah, totally. Sounds like it just happened naturally for you.
Well, it did, yes.
It
And
had, yeah, it did.
there are definitely more. There are, like I said, I was in I'm on that upward spiral, so it was a good
Yeah.
time, like they're being on a downward spiral of just entering into realizing you've got deep healing to do, and a lot of your resources are low and many things are broken. It's not the best time to take on such a huge project. So yeah, it
Mm.
it it was good timing, actually, even though I didn't think it was and I didn't plan it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting how when you also mentioned how in the moment that you felt like you had the capacity to hold space for other people and that you were feeling more confident about that, well, Jasmine also decided to come to this world.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you felt like you had the capacity as well. So that's so interesting.
Mm.
Um, and so what has been the hardest part or parts of motherhood so far?
Like, I could say probably, like, if I really, if I put it down to this particular, Jasmine and our experience, like, sleep has been really hard. She's always been really kind of like active and waking up in her sleep. Um, but I think, and I've reflected on this in the podcast before, I think the
Mhm.
hardest time for me was like the first couple of months, like the first 2 or 3 months. There have been like little other kind of low points of sleep and things like that, the trip.
Mhm.
But um, I think the hardest part for me was to be at the start of a new project that I
Mhm.
had never done before, and I had no idea what it entailed. I didn't
Yeah.
know about the complexity, and just how just the variety of different experiences and challenges and dynamics that could happen. Like, you just don't know. Now I know more going into the second child. Like, I know more about how it just could be anything could happen. And you kind of know
Mhm.
that before, like, as I was pregnant, I was like, look, anything could happen, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen like this, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
Manifesting it.
but now, I didn't realize just how new it would be, and basically what this particular project entails, and being at the start of it. So yeah, the start of any project for me, I feel like, unless you're super resourced, it's a project that you've got familiarity around, you've got the resources there by chance that perfectly align with that project. The start of any project is a bit of a
Yeah,
survival phase, it's a bit of a, yeah, and we're not,
absolutely.
hugely resourced in any of the particular areas, I guess, besides one, which is like being really focused and confident that I could do it. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was
And
probably the challenge, the biggest one.
so like all of that newness, how did that make you feel? What sort of emotions were going through you?
Super challenging. Just that was really the hardest part, not feeling confident. I think I've spoken to
Yeah.
this in different ways before. It's like if you things can be really hard, but if you feel confident,
Hmm.
not even like just confident, like this is what's coming up, and I feel confident that this is the way I want to approach it. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to win. I don't know if it's going to get worse, but at least I feel confident that I know what feels aligned with me and how I want to act. Um,
Hmm.
and I just didn't feel that. And it was so hard for me. For example, do I let her contact sleep on me? Do I sleep train? Like, am I, which approach do I want to take? Do I want to be more
Yeah.
authoritarian? Do I want to be more gentle? Like, I don't know what feels aligned with me yet. So at the beginning
Yeah.
of the, postpartum period, I was like in the real data collection phase. But I was
Yeah.
also feeling the pressure that I need to act now, like I need to do, and
Yeah.
now I know that that's not true. You can act whenever you want. Like, um, they're so adaptable, and especially in the first,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, 6 months to even a year, things are changing so much that it almost doesn't even matter what you're being consistent with. Things can change actually and be pulled out from underneath you. But yeah, that was really
Yeah. That's
hard.
interesting.
Yeah, how do I feel? Just the worst feeling, just feeling broken, lost, uneasy with not
Hmm.
knowing what I wanted to do, but also feeling this other thing, which was like, you're ruining it if you don't act now, which is not true.
Oh my God. It seems like, yeah,
The
there's,
pressure.
yeah, the pressure. Absolutely. There was quite a bit of pressure there. And so then how did you overcome all of those
Um,
challenges?
so yeah, like that biggest challenge just being, to be honest, that like that one I just described about not knowing what I felt aligned with, that was just time. As I was like,
Hmm.
just struggling and flailing about, and then, oh, that problem is completely gone. Oh, that's fully changed, and starting to, I started to get experience in that first year about how quickly things change and about how the one thing that I was fearing the most, which was like, I need to act now, or I'm going to break her. You're going to
Hmm.
set some pattern in place. You're going to mold her in a way that's going to, that was, time, revealed to me that
Yeah.
that was false. So that helped. But in terms
Yeah.
of like being at the beginning of a project, that didn't stop. The project continued. I'm still in the project. Now I've got a toddler. How do I want to address things? And I think the way that I overcome it is like that one resource that I said that I really had really strongly, which was like the capacity to focus and to take a project seriously and to feel confident in myself, like I can be successful in this. So yeah, recruiting that resource and confidence I have, and the ability to focus, and I'm super optimistic as a person, like as a temperament. So I felt really positive about it. Even obviously I felt, more negative about things at times. But yeah, feeling more positive was definitely one of the ways that helped me overcome that piece.
Yeah. Wow. So as a professional entrepreneur and leader, how do you balance work, motherhood, your self-care and the spirituality, your spiritual practices?
Like, as most people who've listened to the podcast or they know about me, they know that um I've got like a stay-at-home dad, so around, so who actually like now kind of works because we moved down into a rural area and we've got a property that, requires a lot of maintenance. And like, if you live in a rural area, you got to like get your own gas and like, slash your paddocks and do all of these things. So he's also quite busy. But yeah, how did I balance it? I had an idea as I was starting to make the decision about, I kind of anticipated what
Mm,
I would like it to look like, what I would feel comfortable with. In practice, it's a very complex, very dynamic, changing thing that,
yeah.
but yeah, I started it with an anticipation of how I wanted things to be when I think about balancing work and motherhood.
And how was your anticipation, or how did you envisage it? How did you
Um,
imagine it to be like?
pretty much how it is going now, at least from the outside. There's more internal
Yeah.
pieces though, that like more nuanced pieces of, how am I going to get my needs met? Like, how am I ultimately going to run the house? Because I run the house,
Mm,
like no matter if that's not our agreement or not with Jared, I run the house, he runs the outside, like he runs
yeah.
outside of the house. I don't even know where the bin goes. Like I don't even I just don't know, like because
Yeah.
we don't have a garbage service, so he has to take it to the tip. Like I don't even know. He's away now. I actually
Ah,
wrapped up the bin, but I just put it on the back porch, and one day it'll just disappear. So,
yeah.
like there is a as much as I'd like to complain that I do everything, like there is a bit of a balance there. And inside the house there's a lot of things about um with like maintaining a household and everyone that's in it. um so I guess I didn't think that that's how it would be, but I can see that that's a good balance for us.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it just means that I have to be, because I feel like I'm doing a lot, it just means I have to be really vocal about any time that I don't feel like it's fair. I don't feel like things are aligned. I want more help. I need more help. So I didn't
Mm,
realize how much I would be managing all of that. Um, the person I'm with doesn't anticipate the needs inside the house,
mm,
which includes all the things that I really am anticipating. They anticipate all the needs outside of the house. So, I didn't realize those things. So yeah, it's kind of what I thought it would be, at least a little bit. But yeah, it's very complex. So I
and you
speak a
say
lot about
dynamic as well.
super dynamic, always changing.
Yeah. And so that's like the house chores and, yeah, I guess motherhood as well. But what about work and your self-care routine or spiritual practices? Do you do that every day, or how do you plan it? How do you balance it?
Yeah, I think for me, there's been like we had a big podcast a couple months back, you and I, about
Ah,
self-care
yeah.
and about how that's kind of changed over our spiritual journeys over the last 10, 15 years, where it goes more from a discipline to more of a habit to more of a lifestyle, and like a different motivations are leading your self-care and spirituality at all times. For
Yeah.
me and you, we're so lucky that it's actually a part of our work and our lifestyle, um, and we know when we need some external support to um just drop in a little bit deeper and have the space held for us. And I think like everybody, it's like, we're always relating to the fact like, wouldn't it be great if I did more
Yeah.
of it?
Totally.
But you get less hung up on that as well. So yeah, it's changing. I feel good about it. I know like I get to lean on the fact that in a month or in a couple of weeks, I'm going to go on retreat again and I'm going to drop so deep and clear out so much stuff and empty so much and reset and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's almost like self-care and spirituality has given me like the tools, the self-awareness and the sensitivity and the acceptance and the compassion that are being reinforced and employed in my daily life. So if I feel like I
Absolutely.
need more of that, then I come back to those tools. But it's also just like, wouldn't it be nice? It just feels so good to do those practices as well. So yeah, that's a bit about self-care and spirituality. Yeah, about work. It's again just about finding that balance. Like my work is very, entrepreneurial and like flexible, but there'll be a thing where it's like, Jared, you're taking care of Jasmine all week long, and I'm doing this
Yeah.
thing that I need to get done. Um, or I'll be away for a retreat or something, and then there'll be, so I get to really manage my time there, and I have um that arrangement with my partner to,
Yeah.
to try to manage that. It's not always easy. It doesn't always feel good. Um, but like, yeah, we manage that and it works really well.
Yeah. So I guess like having that communication with your in your team, because it is
Totally.
basically it is a team. Yeah,
Totally.
you both are a team for sure for this project. um, yeah. So another question, and this is something that I was speaking to another friend, and then from Instagram we saw quite a few questions, kind of asking the same thing. With the current state of the world, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about the current state of the world and climate crisis and the future for Jasmine, for your kids?
This also was one of those pieces, how at like the very beginning I was speaking about how there was like a bit of that coalescing and turning point of a bunch of factors that made me feel like, yes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'd just come out of a period of like going really deep into climate crisis and degradation of the earth and yeah, like more like environmental um anxiety and things like that. And kind of just like after a
So
few,
was that before before you got pregnant? Okay, I get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And just prior to this period where things, so it was one of the factors was that something inside me reconciled that piece. And that led me
Yeah.
to once again feel more like this feels this feels good, like it, more branches on this other tree we're growing. But yeah,
Yeah.
otherwise that was absolutely a concern. I think it's a totally valid concern. So the question,
Yeah.
how do I feel about the current state of the world?
And
Um,
the future for your kids. Yeah.
of course, yeah. So I think for me, because yeah, this question has come up a lot when I've spoken to other parents as well. Or people will spontaneously like ask me that, like, how are you having kids when that, like, how do you feel about things? And
Mm.
I feel like right now we're at a time where it could go either way. Um, and I feel like both it could go either way. This could be the turning point of the most miserable, horrific demise of our planet and communities, or this could be the most spectacular rise of something marvelous for our planet and communities that we've ever like possibly could imagine. So, the absolute worst thing
Yeah.
you can't even imagine how bad, and you can't even imagine how good. I think, I think both of, I think we're at a time. This is what I believe. I believe like this is my current feeling
I
about it.
love it. I love it. Yeah.
I think
Because we
we're
hear a lot about negativity outside in the news everywhere. There's a lot of negativity and
there's
fear.
also a lot
So
of
yeah.
stuff about like this is the turning of our consciousness and like people feeling really
Yeah,
convinced about that.
absolutely.
And I think that if you believe that one of those possibilities is more true than the other, I believe at this time it's naive to believe that as to be true. You could hope for one, and I hope for, and I like believe in the positive one. I
Mhm.
genuinely do like feel like that potential is there. I can explain more in a moment why I believe that. But I think if you actually believe one of them to be true, it's really naive because sure, you have all this data and these opinions and the memes and internet things that you've seen that you've collected to form that argument and the conversations and the echo chambers on the groups that make you believe
Mhm.
like, no, 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 this is what's happening, positive or negative, that you feel like you've got the right answer. I feel like it's naive because we're in this particular time of information sharing and confirmation bias where it is just impossible to know the truth. I feel that about a few different things that people feel really strongly about right now in terms of like their political or worldviews. Like it's now at a point where it's impossible to know the truth. It's impossible to know what's really going on with climate change. It's impossible to know what's really happening in the government. It's impossible to know what anyone's intentions actually are. So it's naive to think that we might know the truth. Both of them could be true. I feel like, so not only is it impossible to know the truth, I personally believe that we're at a tipping point, maybe in the next 10 to 50-year period. It's still could go either way.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Maybe 10 to
Absolutely.
100 years even. It could
Yeah.
still turn like either are possible because they say in the next 5 years, if we increase by one more degree, destiny is set kind of thing. So I still believe that we're in a transition period, whether it's like, I don't believe that things could be confirmed in the next 10 years, but maybe like after 10 years, something, the trajectory could be a little bit more set. I still don't know when we would ever know the truth about that trajectory. Um, and because of that, and then I feel positive. I feel like I wrote something the other day. I wrote this like kind of horrible post that I will share about like what I think the absolute most horrific end could be. Um, and it's more about an economic kind of um dystopia kind of thing. But I believe that there's enough, say that the all the money and all the power is centered around profit, exploitation, gambling, war, like all of those things. But
Mhm.
so that's all the power and that's all or all the control and all of the money. But then all the intelligence lies in the rest, in the people, in the 8 billion nervous systems.
Absolutely.
And that's where
Yeah.
all the intelligence lies and the creativity and the capacity for collaboration. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, just putting our energy over there. And like the good news is that there's absolutely no benefit in dwelling in the feelings that feel bad. And there is a
Yeah.
positive benefit in putting attention into the things that feel good, which is what everyone says. Like, no, I don't want to think about the conspiracies anymore. Even like the full conspiracy people are like, I don't want to think about it. It's making me feel bad. I just need to focus on what feels good. I think in some
Yeah.
ways you need to just continue to contribute to what feels good. So yeah, I
Yeah.
feel
And to
like
creating the world that you want to have as well.
putting
Yeah.
energy to
And
that. as an
Absolutely,
individual.
putting the energy. Yeah. And so, has there ever been like any anxieties related to the state of the world and Jasmine's future, or
Zero,
have
like
you handled that?
absolutely zero. Like I have, I allow
Yeah,
my mind, if it feels like, I'm like, wait, should I contemplate that? And I go into that and I'm like, I feel nothing there.
yeah,
But I lived in
yeah,
such deep anxiety for not for me and my kids, but like it was like, no kids, like don't even think about kids, just think about your
yeah,
anxiety for the future. So I really lived in that for like a period of like maybe 2 or 3 years and really went to the bottom of how bad that could feel. And then coming
yeah,
out of that, I like it was because people are like, no, 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 I don't want to think about the negative. Like I actually reconciled it inside myself. It went away. It got transformed, and I feel this new perspective more. And so when I think about, do I
hmm
worry about her? It just feels like nonsense to worry because of those things
hmm
that I said, where you don't know and you couldn't
absolutely,
know, but you
yeah,
could only do this. And so it feels like nonsense to worry. So it's like one of those more philosophical, transformative things where like what I have come to understand makes me experience that, which is that would be
absolutely,
nonsense kind of thing. So that's where
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what about the mental health of kids and the use of, I don't know, technology and
yeah.
all of those topics?
um really freaks me out. The idea of like what could happen with kids being plugged in and stuff, but I've got this bubble around us where because we live in Nanup,
Yeah,
um
absolutely. It's nice.
like
As a paradise, your slice of paradise and
it's
nature.
and nature and stuff, but because we're so isolated, like even if you live 30 minutes away in Bustleton, for me it's just I would just knowing what I know now, I would potentially consider moving or not. I just don't know how you could raise a kid these days in a town where the influences for technology are out of your control. So, say a kid comes to school and is 8 years old or 6 years old and has Instagram on their phone. I'm just gonna go talk to Arlo's parents. There's only 5 kids in her grade. Like you have control over
Yeah,
what the other families are doing. If you send your kid to a public school up in the city, you don't have control. You don't know who those parents are. You don't know their phone number. You don't know where they live. You don't
yeah,
have a connection with them. Like the I feel so blessed. I just can't imagine. Even if you were to be in Margaret River or Denmark, these things are out of your control. Like just because of the pool of people,
yeah,
like even if I was not to like or agree with all of the different parents, I can confront or like speak to them directly and get a feel about what's going on. You're just out of touch. You don't have a feeling with everything. That's how I feel. Obviously, I don't know so much about it, but yeah,
yeah.
the parents and the kids here in this community are just super aligned, super chill, super
That's so
amazing.
nice.
Um,
Yeah,
some of
yeah.
them
It's a
watch
nice community.
amazing community and small, just so that there's like a form of control.
Yeah,
I want to be able to
yeah.
control things. I want to,
And
I
also
want to be
have the
able to,
support of the community. Yeah,
yeah, and I want to be able to control things that I feel like might be dangerous, which I think that social media, I don't have a teenager who's on a
yeah,
cell phone, but I think that it could get dangerous, and
definitely. And at
uh,
some stage, Jasmine will get to that point of being a teenager. Maybe she may want to be using technology as well.
and I
So,
would hope so. Like, yeah,
mhm,
I want her to
yeah,
use it. I don't want her to, um, yeah, her to use it when she's 6 or 8 and be confused and
yeah,
someone
yeah,
is doing something weird and she sees it and she's confused and she's curious and like,
yeah,
it's just another layer of complexity that, um, I think at that age, like I think all challenges and stuff are only going to add to the bond and the richness and the trust that we have in each other. Different challenges that come up, they're an opportunity to build those things, maybe not right away, but I think when you start to add in very confusing, manipulative, and powerful influences, it starts to undermine some of that trust as you feel curious to go and explore that, but
Definitely,
yeah,
yeah.
so it's
And
weird.
there's more maturity at a later stage uh, of her childhood and when she reaches the teens. So
100%. Her
yeah,
brain is formed more, like she's.
yeah, yeah. Nervous system has been developed more. Yeah,
How do you feel about
yeah.
that?
Wow.
How do you feel about that
Now, well,
question?
that well, I I guess like I've been quite biased. I mean, I do intrinsically believe that we're in a turning point. There's hope. I have hope in humanity and in what's happening in this world. But at the same time, I just imagine myself having a kid, and I just, yeah, I feel I would get very anxious or worried about the whole situation of the world and the climate crisis and the state of the government and control and everything that yes, I right now, from my point of view, from where I am standing, um, well, just before the conversation that we're having, yeah, I was like a little bit anxious and nervous about that and biased, focusing on the negatives. But you're absolutely right. And like, there's no point to focus our energy onto something and worrying about that. I feel like it's more useful to and proactive and productive to actually focus our energy to something that that we can cultivate, that we can um uh into creating something, and having hope and having uh the resources and everything to make the world that we want to live in.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was good to hear um your answer and to
Yeah.
hear your point of view. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I just feel like
And
I
go
just feel
on.
like couldn't be as bad as having a kid in like any period before now. Like the war and the famine and
Totally.
all of that stuff. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, there's always been challenges in humanity and trauma and uh, situations, war, as you said. And sometimes it's out of our control. So, yeah.
the worst possible scenario would be that the child you bring into the world is in a state of absolute dystopia and like the worst things ever for its entire lifetime. So what if it experiences like 5 years at the end? Like what is the worst thing that could happen? And
Yeah.
what about having the like you create a child with a perspective about these things. Like you
Mhm.
could say right now, it's like the most challenging time with the anxiety and like the disease and the chronic illness and like, but people are facing it with the resources that their parents have given them, you know?
Yes. Yeah. 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 And so that's why, yeah, it's also very important how you educate and raise your kids.
Yeah, we have so much power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that. I like that point of view of putting power, bringing the power back to ourselves
Yeah.
rather than just giving our power to our external factors.
Which
Yeah.
are a mystery, actually. We don't really know what's going on.
Absolutely.
But we really
Yeah.
know what's going on in our personal domains, in our smaller communities and in our lives, like
Yeah.
what matters. Everything else is an imagination,
Yeah.
to some
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah. So, well, that was a very good answer. And so moments that you wish you changed your mind about motherhood.
No. Oh, you mean like after having Jasmine?
Yeah.
Um, I wish that I did regret it so that I could like admit to that, but no, I've never regretted it.
Yeah.
Um, the more changing the mind is before, so contemplating the second, there was a lot of like back and forth. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but once it becomes real for me, I was like, dealing with the challenges of the project, but this is it. This is what we're doing. This is what I want to do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
just committing myself to it and knowing that you can't take it back also in my um mind has probably made that
But
not even a factor.
yeah.
Yeah, those would be very challenging thoughts to deal with, revealing the kind of shakiness of the foundations
Mm-hmm.
of that
Yeah.
project, which I could imagine many people feel and would be really hard. But yeah, I didn't have
Yeah.
that.
And is there like an advice that you could give to those people that maybe, struggling, who are maybe listening to us and are struggling at the moment with parenthood?
Um, there's so many different ways that we can struggle with it. I think, I mean, like the first thing I think would be like just to start to consider it like a project that you have to be successful in. Because it's not going away. You can't go bankrupt. You can't really get rid of them. You have
Yeah.
to be successful in this project. You need to do what this project is calling you to do. And if you're feeling that shakiness in the foundations, you need to slowly, like, you don't need to fix it overnight. It could take 3 years, 5 years, but it's such a long game, right? So you need to focus on those foundations so I guess the first thing is like to commit to this project, knowing that like, no matter who you are, no matter what resources you've got or the horrible hand that you've been dealt, potentially, because you might be dealt a really horrible hand. Probably not as horrible as it could be, like probably just a couple of really challenging pieces, but no matter who you are, you can be successful in this project. It's just going to take time. It's going to take focus. It's going to take time and focus, so um
Mm-hmm.
and time and focus to build all of the different resources that you need for this project to be successful. So yeah, just kind of like committing to that outlook, like I can be successful. Do I want to be successful? People might say, well, I'm scared of, like, all of those things. That's all just kind of stories. Like, just either kind of commit to it or not. Ask yourself each day until you can, and then find out what it is that, because yeah, it could be so many things. What is it that's making this
True.
hard, so is it a financial resource, an emotional resource, a relational resource? Is it your health? Like, there's so many of these pieces. I think there was a podcast a little while back where I was speaking a lot about those like pieces that are really challenging, because I remember talking about that book about postnatal depletion. um
Yeah,
one of the recent parenting podcasts. Maybe
that's
we'll
right.
remember to put the note in the show notes.
Sounds good. We'll do that. So speaking about the second child, um, yeah. So how is it for you right now? And well, there's another question that we received. Well, many questions that are connected to the self-sacrifice and like like is a sacrifice self of yourself worth having a second child, or did you wonder about like you're about your capacity and about um like worrying about losing that sense of self and sacrificing parts of you with the second child? So how how has it been for you right now?
Um, I think capacity, like this question came up so many times, right? Capacity, which is such a great thing, right? That people recognize that, um, that will be a concern. So capacity, was like probably the thing that was like, no, no, not now. And um, I don't know if I told you, it was in like our past few newsletters where I spoke about this transition of like the second child and stuff. And that, there was a time like earlier this year, so just after Jasmine had turned 1, where I had the realization like, well, we're going to have a second child. It's Jared's destiny. It's Jasmine's destiny. Like they want it so bad. I'm not going to be able to deny them of that. But it's always just been like, let's talk about it later. And I realized that the one thing I don't want is for it to be later. The
Why is
challenge
that?
of the first year, I want to get over with now. I don't want to put that off. And I don't want to put it off
Is it
at a,
because of the age of or
yeah,
what is it?
that was an
What do
age
you think
thing,
it
which
is?
is again just a story and just a tree
Mm-hmm.
that I had built that, oh, my body won't deal with it. I won't bounce back so much. My health will, it'll complications that, and don't want to be old. And, I don't want to be, 60 when, my child turns 20, like I want to be cool and young or whatever. This is another story.
Yeah.
And you just wanting to get that first year out of, and when I realized that, well, I was like, well, how will we do that now? Like, we don't have the capacity. And I was like, you just do it. The capacity, you just kind of carve the way, especially like just in the place that we are where we have
Mm-hmm.
that bank of emotional, relational health resources that we can kind of tap into, and we'll just make the rest work kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So when it came to capacity, I kind of realized like you either have the capacity or you don't. But if you have the capacity, um, and then you're just worrying about it, that, it'll kind of suck, it will suck. It sucks when something takes up some of your capacity. It sucks when you have to face those challenges, but it's also super enriching and super um, enriching, so it adds to you as well in the way as you overcome those things. So you either
Mm-hmm.
don't
Mm-hmm.
have the capacity or you do, and I'm like looking at you and thinking like you have the capacity. You're worried that it'll suck. Parts of it will suck, where some
Mm-hmm.
people might just not have that emotional mental capacity. It's going to break them, it's going to take away. um and yeah, you kind of just have to feel into that and just keep collecting data around that to sense where you lie on that. And maybe, I don't actually know how you feel about things, and see where you lie in that. So yeah, when it comes to capacity, um your capacity stretches, and then you have to rebuild
Yeah.
from that stress afterwards, so after the
Mm-hmm.
first 14 months or so, I was in a rebuild stage, and that felt amazing. But yeah, it was 14 months of like, really like no sleep and no energy and no nutrients and just feeling depleted. And also the emotional stresses of like managing how I want to do this, and like, putting in that effort at the beginning of the project. I know very well from starting
Yeah.
businesses that, you have that period as well. And then about the self-sacrifice, I believe that like at any moment you might have to sacrifice something. But I think there's a more like smaller isolated experiences where you could have as like and I believe you kind of should have like, if you want to if you want to do this project, the project embedded in it should be um doing the things that I love in my life, having time for me. I don't think the project could, why would you engage in a project where it doesn't also have those like key objectives inside it, that
Yeah.
you take care of yourself, you grow as an individual, you have purpose, you feel energized, you have a sense of self.
Mm.
And so you might have isolated experiences. So for 2 months here, or 6 months there, or a year here, it might take 2 years for that. But overall, the project should include should be as a priority, is that's one of the things in the project, just like the priority is the developmental success and the attachment and like the growing of the child. It should also include all the other aspects of your life that are important. So that's all part of the project.
Yeah.
Things are, in your business, some days you focus on marketing, some days you focus on admin, some days you focus more on your product. And the days you're focusing on your product, you're not focusing on your marketing. And if there was some improvement to make there, it doesn't get done, because you're not focusing on that.
Mm.
For our
Yeah, I
business
like that.
people out there.
Yeah. For me that made complete sense.
So, Anaid,
Yeah.
let's do, yeah, I want to hear your comments on that as well,
Um,
but let's do just one more, after you comment, let's choose maybe just one or two more questions from the list, because I haven't seen the time even.
yes.
I'm sure we're going along with
I
this.
think we're, yeah, getting to the 1 hour now. Yeah, well, I mean, I just think that part of me, for example, I'll speak from my personal experience. I just love so much spending time with my friends, doing, I have my passions, my purpose, my intentions in life, and I do enjoy spending time on my own as well and doing the things that I love. And so, you know, that concept of, like, I just, maybe it is an internal belief, thinking that I will just sacrifice a lot of things, a lot of time that I invest on myself and my projects and my business and things. um yeah, I will sacrifice a lot for the development of a child. And so with you, did you experience that? Did you feel like, oh, I do really enjoy having time on my own, or having to, like, investing my time on my projects, and thinking about having a kid? Was that for you like something like, oh my God, do I really want to sacrifice a lot of
Yeah.
myself for a kid?
Yeah.
Or how
I
was it
mean,
for you?
this was the number one reason for me. It wasn't just that, like, made me question. It was just what confirmed to me that I wasn't interested in kids, is because I really like my work. I really, really, really like the people I serve and the work that I'm engaged in. I'm so interested in my passion. I feel so incredibly fulfilled. I don't need another project. And I definitely
Mm-hmm.
don't need another new, complicated, like toxic project, I've got this amazing project. So that wasn't something that made me question. That's just what confirmed for me that I'm just not interested, for all of those years. And like I said, I think just as my internal confidence grew in my capacity, and what my project, my idea of my life project expanded. And it's very, very true, like in my work, and maybe for the people listening, in the passions that you do, in the relationships that you have with people. um would it offer an advantage to that, to have an experience of intimately knowing what the developmental process is like, so for me, it's completely, I'm super grateful to Jasmine for
Mm.
exposing me to something that was always speculation before. And now looking back, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I even had the nerve to speculate on this experience before. Um,
Yeah.
where I'm, talking about the nervous system. It's like, do you know the nervous system until you've seen it develop, and you've witnessed that. And so, like, for me, I'm like, thank you,
Mm-hmm.
for showing me, and the understanding of
Mm-hmm.
more and more richness about how to hold space and what that means, and dynamics, and how to manage things, and how to do that juggle, and what it feels like for a parent to come on a retreat, like having so it actually when my idea of what my project expanded, it became this vital piece. I was like, oh, I actually want this. I want to be able to do my life's work better. Raising Jasmine is not my life's work. Being in a relationship with Jared is not my life's work. Um, I would be just fine if I didn't choose those two things, but I wouldn't be doing my life's work as good.
Yeah.
Not, I
Absolutely.
would say, I'd say only half as good, really, because it's really offered so quickly, such an enriching depth to that experience. Um, so yeah, I do resonate that, like, of course. And yeah, just back to you, like, I want to hang out with my friends. I want to do the things I love, like, okay, normal person. But then I was thinking maybe not normal people. Maybe some people don't really have that, and that's why they feel really like a kid would be a good, that would be my thing. But we have all these other things, like you and I are very similar. We've got our businesses and our passion, our spirituality, our relationships, like beautiful
Mm.
partners, and so much we could invest there, and the world to travel, and our youth, and like, and it's like, do I really want to sacrifice all that? Like you said, this is the time, like these are the best years of my life. And I think, just something that came up for me was like that at the time of birth, they're 100% dependent, and then it just gets less. So it's like, yeah, in the first 3 months, you're not like, oh, who should I go for dinner with? Or, oh, I want to have that coffee date. It's like, when's my baby sleeping? When is it breastfeeding? Like, it's really dependent. And then your job is to facilitate its independence, not by any timeline, but its own, like it's got its timeline
Mm.
of when it's ready
Yeah.
to stop doing this. And then you facilitate that, which I think is really hard for the moms that are like, don't know how to facilitate that sense of independence and feel have wounds from the past about abandonment. So then they don't want the kid to be independent. But for
Oh,
me,
yeah.
I'm like,
Mhm.
send you away as quickly as possible, when you're ready. And Jasmine is naturally very independent as well, probably because she's been encouraged that, as well as her internal nature as well. But yeah, just for
Yeah.
you to answer that, like, they're dependent and then they're increasingly independent until you get your life back.
Great. Let me see if there's another. Well, we still have a lot of questions.
Something that I can see the list, something that has really come up.
Oh yeah. If I wonder about this so much, does that mean it is not the right decision? So,
Um,
what do you think?
yep. Um, no, I think there's many other factors that make it the right decision or not. Um, yeah, how do you feel about that, right? You're in that phase right now where maybe it's not preoccupying your mind, but every time the question comes up, it's a wondering, you know?
Mm,
So how do you
yeah.
feel about that?
Um, Look, I'm just open at the moment. I'm listening. I am kind of compiling information so then I can make my own decision.
Yep.
And like with curiosity, I am actually inquiring where is that no, or where is this resistance coming from? Resistance coming from? Is it something that I truly feel like? No, I don't feel like having a child in this life or right now. Or maybe it is something, there's something underneath. So I feel like in my case, it feels healthy and natural to inquire and to have questions and to, but also I know that there's not going to be the perfect time to have a kid with the perfect situations. It happens. We can't control everything, but yeah, like I am. Just yeah, with curiosity, inquiring and observing what's happening internally, because like for a lot of time I've been like postponing it, like thinking, nah, well, I think about it in a couple of years, but now I'm like, well, um this was a good opportunity to create this space for conversation, for us to talk about this. And yeah, I think it's healthy to inquire and to ask exactly how we feel about it. So,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, I think people listening or people in this wondering phase are going to be more strategic. They've got things to consider. That's why it's coming up as a inconclusive. So I don't think it means that it's not the right decision. The other question came up about because I'm asking this question, maybe I don't have the parental instinct. Maybe I don't have a maternal
Mm.
instinct. Um, the maternal instinct comes in so many different forms. My maternal instinct is like a paternal instinct. I've got a very fatherly kind of um energy about it. My mom was like the dad kind of thing. So like yeah, my maternal instinct isn't as strong as Jared's, like,
Yeah.
So yeah, it comes in so many different forms about that maternal instinct. And I don't, yeah, like you, I don't think that I think wondering is healthy. I think if you're losing sleep over it, you might not be wondering it in the right way. And you might
Mm.
need one of our friends actually responded to say that her and her partner created a questionnaire to help, and that it was really helpful to
Oh,
help them
wow.
understand. So they've got two kids. So I'll just see if I can get permission from
That's
her
great.
to include the link here.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Well, if we get
Otherwise,
the permission, we'll include it.
for sure. Otherwise, just contact us directly, and then we can maybe pass it on privately. So. Yeah, I think wondering is good. You want to be asking yourself the right questions. You want to be, kind of like you've done in the past. You're like, we thought about it and we thought that we'll think about it in a year. And I think that's a good way to look at things as well. Um, and you could just stop using protection and just see what happens. That's just my advice for you, but yeah, we'll see. Some really good, the questions that we both have contemplated a lot. So we've covered a bunch of those. There's, a lot of other ones like how the fuck do you afford one? It's
Oh,
actually,
that one, yeah, I thought that was also an important one. I was like, yeah, totally. How can you afford having a kid in this
I
life?
mean,
Yeah.
everywhere in the world, there's something called Facebook Marketplace. There's mother groups. Like we have spent so little money on Jasmine in an uncomplicated kind of average situation. There's other things that, they might need special attention, all these different things. And, there's all these really expensive supplements and stuff that you can buy when you're trying to manage them, when you're trying to get through the hard periods. But yeah, the essentials, um, it's very, very affordable. Later on, maybe you want to send them to private school or something like that, then you have to, or you want to travel with them and fly and pay a flight ticket for them. Like those things are going to be expensive, but can definitely afford to have a kid. You get parental leave, like if you have had a job. Um, so, you can just get parental leave, which is like 16 grand or something in Australia. Thank you so much, Anaid, for being willing to talk
Yeah.
about your own experiences as well and your private experiences. And we're all going to be
My
waiting
pleasure.
patiently to
Ah,
see.
we'll see. I'm still gathering data. I'm still, in
Nice.
this curious moment, and yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
beautiful,
only
beautiful.
time will tell.
That's right. Yeah, nice. All right. Thanks, everybody, for
Yeah. Well, thank
listening.
you so much, Ava. Yeah.
My
Yeah, that
pleasure.
was very, very, very interesting. And like always, I love listening to you and the way you see things. It's like very unique and yeah, very, very wise in many ways and profound. So yeah, thanks for creating space for this,
Yeah,
for
my
inviting
pleasure.
me to be the interviewer.
Absolutely. Yeah, my absolute pleasure. And look forward to hearing people's feedback. And we'll chat with everyone soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Functional Spirituality Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe by pressing the plus button on iTunes or the following button on Spotify. This is going to ensure that this resource is available and top of mind when you most need it. So please subscribe now.